O gracious and loving God, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God. You are our rock, our strength, and our Redeemer. Amen. Do you recognize this picture? Stacy does. Where is it, Stacy? Do you know? It's the headwaters of the Mississippi. This is where Lake Itasca begins, this little tiny stream that becomes the mighty Mississippi. It will flow out of Lake Itasca and make a 2,552-mile journey till it reaches the Gulf of Mexico. Along the way to the Gulf, the Mississippi River will meet up with several other rivers. This is the confluence of the Mississippi and the Minnesota rivers where they meet in St. Paul. The confluence of these two rivers is one of the most powerful and one of the most historic places in all of the Twin Cities. The Mdewakanton Dakota, it has a deep historic and spiritual meaning to them. They call the joining of the two rivers Bdote, Minnesota. And for some Native people, it was the place of origin, their Garden of Eden. As the river makes its way south, it will join with many other rivers, including the Arkansas, the Illinois River, the Missouri River, the Ohio River, and the Red River. This photo is the place where the Mississippi meets the Gulf of Mexico. I've been thinking a lot about the river this week. I ride my bike often across the Lake Street Bridge and the Ford Bridge, and so I see it quite often, and I'm always captivated by this Mississippi River. It is gorgeous in the fall when the leaves are turning. The Mississippi, which began as just that little stream up at Lake Itasca, becomes more and more powerful. It is able to fuel power plants and allow barges to transport grain up and down its lengths. And as it makes its way south, the river flows by farmlands and small towns, big cities, and areas of industry. The river is different colors at different places. And along the way, the river meets people of many cultures and races and faiths. There is unity in this river, unity even in the midst of diversity. I find myself today wondering if people could be more like the Mississippi. As Ginger said, we are beginning a new sermon series today called One Another. The phrase one another comes from the Greek word aleilon, which means one another, each other, mutually, reciprocally. And this phrase, one another, is going to show up 100 times in the New Testament, and 50 times it's used as a specific instruction or command for how we are to treat one another. So over the next few weeks, we're going to spend some time in the one another's and flesh out what they meant then and what they might mean today. We're going to look at them in chunks. Today we're going to look at scriptures that talk about unity. On August 14th, we'll talk about service, and we'll hear from our young people and adults who are serving on ASP and winging their way home today. One week we'll talk about humility, and one week we'll talk about love for one another. So today's scripture talks about unity. And friends, I have to be really honest and say that I'm struggling with the idea of unity and just how far it can extend. The Apostle Paul is writing specifically about unity within a local church. And of course, in any local church, there are going to be differences of opinion, there will be some conflicts, and that is healthy, and it is to be expected. But chances are that most local churches are pretty homogeneous. People tend to have similar religious beliefs. They have similar ideas about the role of the church in the world. They have similar ideas about inclusion. They have similar ideas about what happens in worship because they've chosen to unite with a particular local church. But as you zoom out geographically from one local congregation, you can begin to see how maintaining unity can get much more complicated. The Minnesota Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church has big churches and small churches and house churches, small town churches, suburban churches, inner city churches, and along that spectrum there is also a huge theological diversity. So can we maintain unity in something as diverse as our Minnesota Annual Conference? Then zoom out even further. We have the global United Methodist Church. The nature of our church is always global, and that's a beautiful thing. It celebrates diversity in cultures and language and traditions and geographies. But that same unity in the United Methodist Church also makes unity challenging. The United Methodist Church is a representative democracy, much like the United States of America, and decisions are made for the United Methodist Church by a majority vote. A decision can be approved by 55% of the voters at General Conference and become an official position of the United Methodist Church, even though 45% might disagree with that decision. As you are aware, the United Methodist Church has been deeply divided over the issue of full inclusion of LGBTQ+ persons in the life and ministry of the church. It's been clear for a long time that our denomination can no longer remain united. So the General Conference, which is this representative democracy representing the whole global United Methodist Church, was to meet here in Minneapolis in 2020 and to begin an amicable separation with a conservative stream of Methodism and a more centrist progressive stream of Methodism. But of course, what hit in 2020? COVID. COVID swept the globe, and the General Conference has been put off again and again and again. Well, on May 1st of this year, the conservative stream of Methodism launched the Global Methodist Church. That's its title. And local churches and clergy have begun to affiliate with that movement. Here in Minnesota, at our annual conference, 3 local churches chose to disaffiliate from the United Methodist Church, and 3 clergy people disaffiliated, so that they might affiliate with the Global Methodist Church. So I wonder, can we have unity in the United Methodist Church when we are no longer united? I think we can, and I'll circle back to that in a minute. Christianity in the United States is very diverse, isn't it? We can read the same Bible, we can sing the same hymns in worship, and yet we can come to radically different conclusions on social issues and biblical interpretation. So is unity possible? In a nation that is as deeply divided as ours, politically, theologically, economically, racially, is unity possible? I find myself asking that question, is unity possible in the Big C Church, meaning the Christian church, in the United Methodist Church and the Global Methodist Church, and in the country? So I wonder today if you'd be willing to join with me in my uncertainty and in my wonderings and ponder it a little bit. Let's zero in on the passage from Romans that Ginger read. Here's the context. Conflict had grown in the church at Rome between Christians who felt an obligation to abstain from eating meat that had been sacrificed to idols, and others who felt no such obligation, and so they freely ate of the meat. Some people didn't want to eat the meat because they thought it would compromise their faith and it violated their Jewish dietary laws. And others felt that since the idols have no meaning to people who follow Jesus, they could go ahead and eat the meat without any problem. And they also rejected that they needed to continue to practice Jewish dietary laws. So the dietary issue may not seem like a big issue for us today, but for people of many faiths, how food is raised and harvested and prepared matters. It still matters today. I want you to think about the Twin Cities. We have long had grocery stores that cater to a particular cultural or ethnic or religious group. Ingebrigtsen's on Lake Street caters to the Scandinavians. Kromaczyk Sausage Company on Hennepin Avenue, just north of downtown, has always had a Polish food flair. There are delis and stores in the Twin Cities that have kosher products to serve our Jewish siblings. Since the influx of Muslim immigrants, there are now halal grocery stores where the food is processed and prepared in accordance with the rules of the Quran. and our Hmong brothers and sisters have brought their markets as well, and they've become a staple for many shoppers. And they have particular traditions on how food is processed and prepared. Now, I don't think the presence of these different kinds of ethnic grocery stores in the Twin Cities has been controversial at all. In fact, it's been fun because it's provided us an opportunity to try new foods. But I want you to consider for a moment how very important those stores are to people from those ethnic or religious cultures. Back to the church in Rome. So there was a conflict about what to do about food, and there was also conflict around the observance of holy days and how they should be practiced. As Minneapolis has become more diverse, it seems that the schools and the businesses are beginning to catch up and to become more aware and more respectful and sensitive to the holy days of many faith traditions. Traditions like Ramadan and Eid, along with Rosh Hashanah, Christmas, and Good Friday. School calendars are no longer based solely on a Christian calendar year. So St. Paul says that the issues around food and the special days are really unimportant in themselves, but they are important because of their potential to create conflict in the church. So he gives some advice on how the church in Rome can maintain unity. And it's some pretty great advice. First, he says this: each of us must please our neighbor for the good purpose of building up the neighbor. Imagine entering every encounter asking ourselves, what can I do to build that person up? Would that change how you interact with your neighbor, your coworker, the person on your committee? It would certainly change our behavior on social media platforms. Building up your neighbor will definitely change you, and it has the potential to change your neighbor as well. Welcome one another, therefore, just as Christ has welcomed you. A hallmark of biblical Judaism, a hallmark of biblical Christianity, is a tradition of radical hospitality, in which we are to welcome the stranger as if they were an angel, as if we were welcoming Christ himself. And we ourselves are changed when we begin to approach others with radical hospitality. Paul writes this: may the God of steadfastness and encouragement grant you to live in harmony with one another in accordance with Christ, so that together you may with one voice glorify God. Steady and encouraging. Do those words describe you? Our congregation has some folks in it who are marvelous encouragers. They are quick to offer a smile. They are quick to greet the guest in worship. They will give a kind word. They will send a card. They will send an email of thanks. And I know that whenever I'm blessed by one of those encouragers in the congregation, it calls out my desire to be like them. So are you an encourager? Steady. Some people think that sounds boring. I think not. To be steadfast means to be purposeful, resolute, firmly established, and the dictionary also gives faith as one of the definitions of steadfastness. We worship a God who is steadfast, always loving, always merciful, always compassionate towards God's children, and that gives us hope. So how are you doing at being steady? Would you be described that way? In Romans 15, there's a call for us to live together in harmony with one another. Harmony does not mean that we are all the same. In music, harmony happens when the singers sing different notes together, and the sound that they make is richer and fuller than one note would be on its own. Harmony is a beautiful thing. Paul goes on and he advises the Roman Christians to distinguish between crucial and non-crucial issues. And he says to be flexible in the latter for the sake of other people. He is not telling them to sacrifice their core values or their core beliefs. There are times to bend, he's saying, times to compromise, and times to hold fast. This next quote has been attributed to all kinds of people, St. Augustine, to John Wesley, to the Moravian movement, so we don't know exactly who said it, but it is powerful nevertheless. In essentials, unity. In non-essentials, liberty. In all things, charity. One of my clergy colleagues, a man I deeply respect, a man who's been a friend, a man I've served with ministry teams on, he is one of the clergy who is disaffiliated from the United Methodist Church. He has essentials of his faith, as have I. His position will not change, nor will my stance on full inclusion. So here's the phrase that comes to mind for me in my relationship with him. In all things, charity. In all things, charity. We will not agree, but we can choose charity. We can choose to bless one another even as we go our separate ways in ministry. And I think it's easier for me to do that with him because, A, we already have a relationship, a friendship. We both love Jesus. And I recognize that we are a part of the same river. Do you think that this statement could help our divided culture? Is it even possible? Should it be possible? This is the place where I really wrestle. Is there room for liberty, for difference? And what things are essential? Can we practice charity even when we disagree? What do you think? I would love to hear from you. Send me an email and let me know your thoughts. I want to leave you with a really powerful video. It's about 4 minutes in length. Pay attention to what it says about unity, liberty, and charity.
I would describe my political views as the new right.
I'd say that I'm left.
Feminism today is man-hating.
I would describe myself as a feminist, 100%.
I don't believe that climate change exists.
We're not taking enough action on climate change.
I think it's about time these people got off their high horse and started looking for credible problems that actually exist.
It's absolutely critical that trans people have their own voice.
That's not right. You can't, you know, you're a man, be a man, or you're a female, be a female.
Women do need to remember that we need you to have our children.
Could I be friends with someone that says a woman's place is in the home?
Right, OK, well, I'm an expert at flat packs. If you have any trouble, just watch me.
So it looks like I've got your instructions here.
I think so.
Let me help you.
It's not just that bit there.
Describe what it is like to be you in 5 adjectives.
Okay, frustrating.
Dedicated.
Opinionated.
Lucky.
Ambitious.
Offensive.
Solemn. I have ups and downs.
Strong.
I want to say attacked, misunderstood.
Name 3 things you and I have in common.
We're both male, we're both confident, and we're both loudly spoken.
We know each other better than people who've known each other for 10 minutes should.
You seem quite ambitious and positive, and you've got this really, got a glow. Do you know what I'm saying? Your aura's pretty cool.
I'm sensing, are you former military or something?
People have said that, but there is no,
Really?
there is no history. So are you then
Ex.
ex-military?
Yeah.
If you're ex-military, I'm very proud of you already.
Well,
So,
I grew up in a bit of a rough state. I've experienced homelessness. I've known what it's like to have absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm definitely most grateful just for life.
We've only just met, but I think you're the sort of person that would listen to me and we'd have a discussion rather than an argument.
Yeah, you could hang out with, man.
let's go. Come on, Chance.
Goodness sake.
You're right, mate.
Fitter than I look.
Perfecto.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
So basically, I think we just built a bar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here you are.
Each take a bottle and place it on its corresponding markings on the bar.
Attention, please now stand to watch a short film.
Feminism today is definitely an excuse for misandry, man-hating.
If somebody said to me that climate change is destroying the world, then I'd say that is total piffle.
So transgender, it is very odd. We're not set up to understand or see things like that.
I am a daughter. a wife. I am transgender.
I feel like the battle for feminism definitely isn't done. The fight is never going to be over, if I'm honest with you.
You now have a choice. You may go, or you can stay and discuss your differences over a beer.
I'm only joking.
You're happy for a second then.
Well, I'm having a drink.
I'm having a drink.
Yeah.
I want to discuss.
Beer.
Yeah, beer and discuss.
Cheers.
At the end of the day, mate,
About
I've
reaching
enjoyed
out to
working with
people,
you.
yeah. And, you know, even if you wanted to convince people about your point, the productive thing to do would be to sit
It's
down and have a
engage, it's
beer.
engage.
I've been brought up in a way where everything's black and white, but life isn't black and white.
Yeah, I'm just me.
Yeah.
Smash the patriarchy.
I'll give you my mobile number, you give me yours, and we'll keep in touch. I'd have to tell my girlfriend that I'll be texting another girl. She might get upset with that, but I'll have to get round there.
I'll have to tell my girl.
Now, you don't need to tell the bishop. The pastor was showing a beer commercial in worship. But it does make me wonder, where is unity possible? We are truly part of the same river, you and I. Long ago, the psalmist wrote these words, "There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High." I don't know exactly what all the answers are around unity, but I do encourage you, friends, to step into the river. Step into the river. Amen. May it be so.